Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media. From Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Staci.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah.
And today our first story is, where is it, Sarah?
Gloucester.
Yeah, I refuse to join.
I don't know if that's completely proper, but I think I've heard it pronounced that way.
Well, see, and I am one of those people where, because I like to read so much, there's a number of words that I just saw in print.
Oh, right.
Before I heard them.
Right.
So I don't know how that, and my mother, this used to crack my mother up. I used to say vinyl instead of vinyl.
Nice.
And sue instead of sew.
Sure.
And plaid instead of plaid. Because I was following what my kindergarten teacher had said,
although I've actually heard,
sound it out.
I've actually heard other people say played.
Well, because it looks like paid, but with an L.
Exactly.
So,
the English language is weird when it
Yes.
comes to the words that look alike but aren't pronounced alike.
And I think my aunt told me when she was younger, she said determined instead of determined.
Nice.
And so I was like,
Nice.
that makes perfect sense to me from, the ridiculous, we have 6 different ways of pronouncing this vowel rules that you tried to teach me in school. So this is all your fault.
Well, and
whoever made up these words.
that's how I often remember how to spell things, is by saying them phonetically in my head. You know, how they look instead of how they're actually said. That's how I sometimes remember how to spell words. But
yeah, English is weird because
It
it's
is.
that mix of Germanic, but then also French words, and the whole thing of French with the letters at the end that you don't really pronounce most of the time.
Right.
I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about, French, where, the final consonants are just decorative.
Right.
It's kind of, yeah.
Whereas in Spanish, don't you pronounce everything?
That
makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Just pronounce whatever's there.
The fact that French and Spanish are both Romance, both from Latin, I'm just like, French really kind of went off and did its own thing.
They were drinking.
I don't know what was going on in France, but you were like, we were from Gaul, dang it. We're gonna completely break all the rules.
This has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. Well, except it started out with Gloucester. Yeah.
Language rants, always fun.
Always, I agree.
So, in that place I won't try and pronounce, there is evidently a yearly tradition of people willingly running pell-mell down a very steep and often, I'm gonna guess, muddy hill after a wheel of cheese.
So they're chasing the cheese. They're not it's not like the running of the bulls where they're running in front of the cheese trying not to get hit by it.
Someone rolls the cheese and they all chase it down, and whoever gets there first wins.
Oh, wow.
The cheese, I guess.
This reminds me of a really, really stupid scene in a show called Z Nation, which I think their budget went up the second year, and they just went crazy because there's a scene with a giant cheese wheel rolling down and just not killing, but scooping up zombies. It was like, a snowball as it's rolling down and gathering things. This cheese ball was gathering zombies as it rolled. Really stupid. Hopefully that doesn't happen in Gloucester.
No. So I watched the video for this. It's quite amazing just because it's quite ridiculous. But it really, to me, looked like, and there's evidently different, there's men's events and women's events.
And how big is the cheese wheel? I mean, I'm trying to picture it
if you held it in front of your head, you couldn't see your face.
Okay, so not man size or human size.
Yeah, no, you can't put a child inside this wheel. It's not that big. You can actually physically hold it up.
You can't put a child inside.
But it makes me, it looked like to me, without knowing, that this is a thing they do every year when I just saw the video, it looked to me, because I was watching the guys event, that it was like a bunch of stunt guys were just, in this place I won't try and pronounce, and they were bored and were like, hey, what should we do? Oh, hey, there's that really steep hill. Why don't we go run and or roll down it? But why would we do that? That would be crazy. Oh, I know. I have this wheel of cheese. Let's roll down and chase after it. Oh, brilliant. That's what it seems like. It was just because people really do like tumble down this hill.
It makes me think either it was a drunken idea or it was an accident. The cheese accidentally rolled down the hill once and they were like, hey, that was kind of fun chasing that big wheel of cheese.
Right. Well, and the people were commenting on, I love this, and this is the best thing about, the British and or the people of this location. But that there was a warning sign that cheese rolling is a dangerous activity for both participants and spectators. And the cheese. Well,
it's not good for the cheese.
Well, maybe it makes the cheese better because cheese is, I don't know. But that people were saying it's possibly more dangerous to be a spectator than to be the people going crazily down the hill. And it's just like the person who won in the video I saw, I'm super questioning him. He holds the record for winning this.
Oh.
Now,
practice makes perfect.
21 wins in 14 years. To which my first thought is, why have you been doing this for 14 years?
Multiple times a year, obviously, if he's won.
Well, they have multiple events at each time.
Right.
So he won the first of the 3 men's events. So I guess if he was doing all of the men's events in 1 year, then that would account for 21 and 14. But it's just like,
okay,
I don't know that I might do it once just because it looks that crazy. But why are you doing it?
How do you win? How do you win?
You get the cheese.
You get the cheese. Okay, so you're actually, without like falling and breaking something.
Yes. And well, and here's the thing. He mentioned after his win recently, which caused him to break the record, that he doesn't even like Gloucester cheese. He prefers cheddar. So it's like, it's not even, oh, I really love that cheese. I gotta have it.
I gotta go grab it and take it home with me.
You're doing this for reasons that are clearly beyond me.
So when you catch the cheese, you get to keep it?
Yep.
Okay, you don't have to like give it back to the next group to chase down.
Yeah, but like this has become a big thing. So in the video, you see people lining along this sort of almost like the ski slope jump or whatever in the Olympics, where you could see people up the hill for a while,
right,
on the sides watching this. And there were a number of medics at the bottom because, of course, there were,
right.
But also to stop people from continuing even when they get to the bottom of the hill. There was a rugby team to catch them, to stop them. I was just like, this is both brilliant, but also crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously there's a lot of interesting planning that goes into this. Like, okay, how are we going to stop people? Because, once you get that momentum running down a hill, if you've ever run down a hill, and most kids have, I know. I have a friend on a rugby team. They'd love to come over.
Well, and of course it's a rugby team, so these are big burly guys.
Right.
Cheering people, and the cheese evidently can get up to like 70 miles per hour. So you can only imagine how fast the people who are racing other people to get down this hill are going.
Right.
And like there was one person in the race where this guy broke the record. He was in the lead for a bit. And then when he finally got down, he was unconscious and they had to call the medics he went to the hospital, but he was fine after that. But it's just like priorities for cheese. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, people love them some cheese.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My sister is so funny. She just moved. And she never likes spending her own money anyway. She always is like, can you give me? So it's like, you have a job, pay for it yourself. She just moved. So she's having to buy a lot of stuff, furniture and whatever. Mm-hmm. Still doesn't have like a full kitchen worth of food, but has number of cheeses because you got to have the important things.
Yep. Priorities right there.
But I always wonder about people who would do these things. Like you mentioned, it reminded you of Z Nation. But as you were talking about that, it reminded me of MXC, which was, I can't even quite explain MXC. It used clips from, I think they were in Japan, a really strange Japanese show, but then it did this really almost sarcastic voiceover for them. And this was, I believe, what I want to say ABC, but I didn't watch the show. Whatever Wipeout that show was.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think it was based off of this because a lot of the things they made looked a lot like the ones from MXC. But it's that sort of thing of, who volunteers for these? Like, especially, at least in Wipeout, I think that was like, a game show, so you were trying to win something. But in MXC, I don't know that they were actually competing for anything. It was just like, I'm going to go do this really random task, and often in really random costumes, which was also fun to watch. But it's just like, what is the thought process? Please, if anyone's ever done any of these crazy physical things that seem to have no purpose whatsoever, please let me know what was the thought process behind, yes, I must do that.
I'm also now thinking of West Wing and the Big Wheel of Cheese Day, although that didn't involve chasing the cheese at all. But there was a big wheel of cheese.
I've never seen West Wing, so I know.
Well,
we're gonna take a break right now so I can go look up Cheese Day, whatever that is. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the GSMC social media podcast. So big block of cheese.
Big block of cheese, yeah. I was thinking of wheel, so that of course is what was in my head. But it is big block of cheese day.
Also based on a real thing. Okay.
Anyway, moving on from cheese.
Yeah, just moving on from the
dairy products.
Craziness that, well, sure. Let's go with that. So, I'm kind of excited about this, but also kind of wary about this.
Okay.
In that BTS, the K-pop group, became the first K-pop artist to top the Billboard 200. Now, I can't even tell you the difference between the Billboard 100 and the Billboard 200.
Except that there's a 1 and a 2.
Right.
Right.
I'm like, is one better? Like, if you top the Billboard 200, don't you also top the Billboard 100? Or are those two different things? Are one like singles and one like albums? I don't know.
I've never actually thought about it.
Right. I don't quite understand even how Billboard figures out where things rank. But anyways, so this caused a big stir because they are at least the first K-pop artist. They might be, I'm not sure if they're the first Asian artist, but they are the first K-pop artist. And they're the first foreign language album to top the Billboard 200 since 2006.
Oh, wow.
So 12 years. Yes. And BTS has a huge social media following, like insane social media following. Like I believe at the Billboard Awards, they won the top social artist or whatever. They won that at the American Music Awards, which is why they were first invited and why they then performed and that whole craziness that was happening last year. I'm excited about this, but at the same time, I'm kind of really over a good amount of their like rabid fans.
Oh, they're that bad, huh?
Well,
oh my gosh, they are just such a little Korean boy band. I'm looking at the picture and wow, are they a Korean boy band? They've got that.
I don't quite know how. Okay, so I've been a K-pop fan for a number of years now. So I'm well indoctrinated enough into it that when people say that, I'm just like, well, duh. And
right. I mean,
all K-pop boy bands, because there are not, like, I don't think people who aren't K-pop fans really realize this, because we went through our like boy band, girl band phase in the 90s and then kind of killed it off until we brought back One Direction. But we had like, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls. And then we were like, you know what? We're good. We're done. We don't really do the boy bands anymore. That is not how K-pop works at all. Like solo artists there are a number of solo artists in K-pop who were part of boy or girl groups. And then, and they do a great thing there where it's not like here where if one person from a group goes solo, you can kind of just tell, the group's going to dissolve because that's how it always happens. And I'm sure this has to do a lot with like Asian culture and the, group is greater than the individual thing. They will do a lot where a person from the group will have a solo album and then we'll come back and do another group album. And then a different person will have a solo album and then we'll still do a group album. They stay in groups. Like this year I know is Shinhwa's 20th anniversary and they've never broken up over that 20 years. And they did start as just as you said, a cute K-pop.
So now they're a middle-aged band. Yeah. I don't know what to call it. A man band?
I'm not sure. But the majority of K-pop acts, and there are a number of them, are groups. So when people are like, oh, they're such a cute group, I'm like, they're all groups. There's very few solos. What are you talking about? But I'm like, oh yeah, people don't know that. That's right. Okay.
I don't follow K-pop, so this is all new to me.
How did you miss this?
I don't even think I knew what K-pop was until I met you.
Really?
Yeah.
See, okay, and I got into K-pop in 2012, but before the whole Psy craziness, and I was just not paying attention to social media at that time. So I didn't really hear about Psy till like a year later, and then I was like, who's Psy and what is everyone? And this is your introduction to K-pop? Oh, I'm upset. This is most people's introduction to K-pop? Oh, I'm really, but the BTS, I think their fans are very, there's almost I don't want to say rationalization, but the backstory for BTS, I think, causes fans to support them more strongly than others.
Okay.
Because the K-pop industry, beyond just, oh, we have like a zillion boy groups or girl groups, and they really do. There was one thing where they were talking about in 2014 or 16, there was, I think, 50-something groups that came out that year. New groups.
Wow.
New groups.
Wow.
But the K-pop industry is a lot like the old Hollywood movie industry, where it's, they had the studios. In K-pop, it was the entertainment companies. And they signed these people, to long, multi-year careers. And they create their images and, the stories that go. It's very much like the old Hollywood studio system. But BTS did not come from a big company. So a lot of people feel they're more, authentic.
Okay.
For that reason, that they feel less Less, not produced, because they're all produced music acts.
I know what you mean, but like,
yeah, that thing. So their fans have this sort of great sense of, oh, all those other K-pop groups aren't as cool as my K-pop group because my K-pop group's like really real, that sort of thing. And I'm just like, yeah,
right.
But, like, I like BTS, although I have not actually, as they got more popular, I have not liked their actual title songs as much as like the rest of their songs on their album. So like for this one, the one that topped the Billboard 200, Love Yourself Tear, and this is the second of, I'm not sure how many albums. They do things on a theme and they confuse the heck out of everybody. And I think this is partly why they're so popular on social media, is because their music videos at times tell a story over like a year and a half or 2 years, multiple videos, but it's confusing as heck.
Ew.
So people are constantly talking about it. What's the theory for this video, etc., etc.
Okay.
But for this one, the title song is Fake Love, which they performed at the Billboard Awards. And I'm just like, okay. And I'm worried that is part of the, now that they're so popular, it's changing their style thing
sure.
that you always fear with groups.
Right.
Because they did actually change their name. Because do you know what BTS stands for?
Mm-mm.
So originally it's Bangtan Sonyeondan, which usually roughly they translate to Bulletproof Boy Scouts.
Okay. Hey, whatever works.
No, again, you're not into K-pop because some of the K-pop group names are...
Oh, I'm sure they are, but...
The explanations behind them, I'm like, really? That's intricately... Wow, I would have gotten there. Okay. But then as they became more popular outside of Korea, they changed it, so now it's supposedly Beyond the Scene. And I'm just like...
Oh, that's boring.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, okay, look, I get that, your name translated to Bulletproof Boy Scouts, even though I'm super questioning whether any of you have even, like... heard a gunshot, never mind been bulletproof, like, but Beyond the Scene, like, stop, don't change for popularity,
right?
Like, you clearly got popular even without being quote unquote approachable or whatever.
Well, and don't especially don't change to don't change to be more mainstream, but also don't change just because I don't know. Don't Americanize yourself just because you've gained popularity. Keep your cultural references in there.
And so they do that somewhat, but like the main songs they do have started. So like they had Fake Love, and then their last album was DNA, which I didn't like at first, but had to go on me. But then they had that thing, which is, and of course now all their videos easily hit 100 million views on YouTube, within a couple of weeks. But they had that thing where they had a song on their previous album called Mic Drop, which I loved and thought was possibly their best song because it was talking about them coming up as, you know, a group from not a big company and nobody expected them to succeed. And then they got hugely popular. Great song. And then they're like, hey, now that we're getting well known in the Western, we have to do a remix with Steve Aoki and Designer. And I'm just like, but why? And I listened to the and I don't like the remix at all. I totally prefer the original. I'm just like, what was the point of the remix? Like, I don't, stop it. Don't do that. Like,
stop it right now.
I want to cut, like, be like a parent and be like, you're not allowed to go on Twitter or social media or anything. Go to your room and work on your next album.
Wow.
I can't do that at all. And, please, ARMYs, which is their fan club name, don't come at me, because I am a big BTS fan. I really do like them. I love my bias, which is a word that K-pop fans use, is Jungkook, because when I want to be a Renaissance woman, like a modern Renaissance woman, and sort of, you know how to do almost everything.
Okay.
And Jungkook, when they first started, his nickname was the Golden Maknae, because he kind of could do everything. And so I was like, even if I hadn't watched this, I could have just picked out that he was probably going to be my favorite from that nickname alone. Like, of course, I, the person who wants to be a Renaissance person, love someone whose nickname is about you can do anything. Yes. I should have put money on myself for that. But yeah, so hugely popular over social media, considering, again, they're still not really singing in English. Mm-hmm. Like, all K-pop songs, they have English in them, because pretty much all K-pop songs do. Although now there's several that have started having Spanish in them.
Interesting.
So I'm like, okay, we're really
very multilingual, yeah.
Right? But I just want BTS to stay true to themselves, and I want, you know, online ARMYs to sort of calm themselves a bit, because they're not all bad, but they can get crazy, as pretty much all K-pop fans can. So yeah, I've kind of fallen off the K-pop fandom because of things in the fandom, and I'm just feeling incredibly old right now. So yeah, get with it, Sarah. Seriously. What are you doing?
Reading? I don't know.
Hey, I read and listen to K-pop. What the heck?
Yeah. Okay.
We're gonna take a short break, and I'm gonna see if in that short break I can sort of indoctrinate Sarah into the K-pop fandom, the craziness, the rabbit hole it really is that you fall down when you get into K-pop. So we're gonna take a break. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast. We've just sort of during the break, I gave Sarah a sort of beginner's course of K-pop. She looked up a video about top 10 iconic songs, and I was explaining them to her, and then they didn't have erotic on it. Non-K-pop fans won't know what that means, but...
Like, I can't comment on it. I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a terribly...
How dare they?
It's a travesty.
Really, it is. But yeah, I'm going to get off that now, because, again, I could do like a whole episode on K-pop just by myself, but this is not the music podcast, so I will restrain myself.
We may have to have Staci guest guest spot on the music podcast.
Right?
Yeah.
All you need to know about K-pop as we're going into now 3rd or 4th generation or whatever we're on. I don't know.
I'll have to ask Keith the next time he's doing a music podcast if he knows K-pop and if he, he's pretty well rounded, I think, but I don't know if he's a K-pop fan.
I bet I could probably beat him at like K-pop.
I'm sure
Jeopardy,
you could,
if there's such a thing. I need to go on it and win all the money like that one guy. But anyways,
one guy.
What's his name?
Oh, the Jeopardy guy.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name
either. I can see him
either.
in my head, but I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
But anyways, so have you noticed a theme with our topics today, Sarah?
All I can picture are like K-pop bands now. What was our first story? Cheese and K-pop. Cheesiness.
No. I knew you were going to go there, and I regretted asking the question as soon as you said cheese. No. Records.
Oh, because the one guy. Okay.
And BTS, first K-pop artist to be on Billboard Top 200.
Yes.
We're
You
about
are correct.
records, and because evidently I like puns, I had to then finish
Oh
with
no!
this next story.
Hey, if you're that dude from grad school that hates puns, you got to turn the podcast off now. Otherwise, you're going to be so upset.
Although he might have been listening because he and I both like K-pop. So, our final story is about records as well. Library records.
Yay, libraries! Like library records, as in there's so many definitions of the word record.
Just
like
books, but I use that just to make my pun because
Okay.
It's about a library. Let's just go with that.
Excellent.
So, the Institute of Historical Research Library was flooded. Had a flood.
Yes.
And the picture for this is amazing. It looks like we're in the middle of some sort of disaster film because there's just a torrent of water coming out of the top of like a marble wall.
The pictures
somewhere.
of the flooding on the East Coast right now are pretty crazy. Where is this library located?
I want to say it's in Britain, but I got a little confused because when it posted this on Twitter, it had a bunch of responses from a bunch of different libraries. So I'm not sure if it's in Britain or just the people who were responding to it were British. I was just judging off of their tweets what they said, that at least the people responding to it some of them were British. And I thought it was like, hey, we're all in Britain and Britain's having terrible floods, but I'm not actually sure. I was a little confused even on whether or not it was a library because it's the Institute of Historical Research. But I got to it by seeing the picture where they have like all the books in front of the fan to dry off. And I'm just like, no. The books. You got, but it's okay.
Yeah, because they're not going to dry well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no coming back from that.
We need waterproof pages or something. But yeah, so most of the books were okay. They did manage to, cover a good number of the shelves and vacuum up the water.
Right.
I guess you vacuum water when it floods.
Yes. Yep.
I don't know.
You got to have a certain
kind
of vacuum. Obviously, you're not just going to use your Hoover,
right? Excuse me. But because this was the Institute of Historical Research, the responses to this on Twitter were great and not even punny, but just sort of like intellectual jokes.
Okay.
And so it kind of made me think of that story we did a couple of episodes ago with Inferno playing on the Toronto subway PA system, of just the jokes of that, of like, yes, of course, because the elevator goes to hell. So,
right.
When this happened, the library tweeted out.
It is London, just so you know, because I'm the person that looks stuff up.
You are, and I was right. I'm so glad I inferred that way. I'm worthy.
School of Advanced Study, University of London. Unless the University of London is not located in London.
Well,
there you
sometimes, yeah. So, the library itself, when this happened, tweeted out that we are currently closed to visitors due to biblical flood / wrath of Poseidon. Because, of course, that is how you announce, hey, there's water in our building.
Right.
It's totally that way.
I do like when, places that you might picture as being kind of stuffy and staid actually have a sense of humor about themselves.
Well, I just like period when any sort of customer service announcement has to be done and they do it in that way. Like, yeah, we'll play along. Yeah. That's super fun. So the responses to this were great. It was like, where the fountain of knowledge never runs dry. Someone wrote, other people were like, the British Maritime History Seminar has gone too far this time. And then someone was like, what? Where did that come from? And the actual library themselves responded, vengeful sea god, most likely.
Yeah.
Because of course,
Yes.
we as historians know this. And then someone else was like, oh no, are there any classicists nearby who can advise on a suitable sacrifice?
Jeez.
To which someone else responded, sacrifice the classicists, they're to blame. And I'm just like, oh, I love you, all you nerdy bookie
Oh,
people.
yes. I love them as well. And I didn't even,
Right.
read all of this.
Yeah. And, my favorite was, we must load the ark with 2 of every book. One for lending, one for reference. And I was just like, round of applause to whoever did that one.
Yes.
That was just, if you had thought about it, handed to you on a silver platter, but brilliant also. Just amazing.
Nicely done.
But just, yeah.
This is not completely off the topic because it's still about the library, but I'm looking on the library webpage, and it is actually in London.
Okay.
And I love that they give you the closest tube stations. Mostly because that's convenient and helpful, but also
Right.
because I just like that they're tube stations.
Well, and you can
we don't call it the tube here.
We don't. We say a lot of things differently than the British do.
Yes.
But also just the fact that you can, take the tube, subway, what have you, to the school is great.
Yes.
Because there's a number where it's like, oh, hey, if you go to their school website, hey, there's directions, get on this freeway and then get off here. And that's the only way you can get to the school. And it's just like, but public transport, okay, fine, whatever, I guess not.
You can take a virtual tour.
But there was one thing, and I feel like I kind of was lacking in my, I don't know, intellectual reads a lot cred. Like my card is currently on parole for this.
Uh-oh.
Is that someone tweeted out that like, oh, quick, we should contact the spirit of Edwin Dweller to see if he knows how to handle this. And I'm just like,
okay.
who? What? Is this something I should know? Because and someone else was like, okay, so totally had to look up Edwin Dweller and it was worth it. I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm not alone. And I'm the only person who was like, who's Edwin Dweller?
Who was or is Edwin Dweller?
So, no, was.
Okay.
He was giving a tour at Senate House, and I keep wanting to say the Senate House, but nobody else said the Senate House.
Okay.
So it's just Senate House.
Right.
And a lift like fell or crashed or something, and he died.
Oh.
And so people have since then claimed that his ghost is there and that his spirit's still there. And so intellectual literary ghost, we have to contact him to figure out what to do in our flooding library.
Yes, it is just Senate House, even in the address.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So yeah, love intellectual puns. And again, I'm like 80% of the mind that Twitter should only exist for
For stuff like this.
puns, for puns and snarkiness.
I love it.
There's nothing else it's like puns and snarkiness, and then sometimes like social change protests, but nothing in the middle. Nothing else.
Well, Staci, you tried to get me to go down a K-pop rabbit hole, and it was somewhat successful. But right now, I am in a virtual tour of the IHR rabbit hole, and I'm just in books, surrounded by books.
You should see if they have books about K-pop.
Well, I'm not exactly sure how to navigate it completely that effectively, but I'll see what I can do.
Ask Edwin Dweller.
Okay. If I see his ghost somewhere, I'm going to be, I don't know, freaked out, think it's really cool, something.
Oh man, I could totally go off on a side tangent about the idea of ghosts in Korea and how everyone seems to have a ghost story, but I won't. I will restrain. Again, my restraining is at a limit, so I'm going to end before I do go off on that K-pop Korea.
Good to know your limits, Staci.
Lecture, rant, what have you. So we're going to end for today. Thank you for listening to the Social Media News Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.